This is an introduction to the Vital Center Downtime viewer, and I'm Fred Redhead in training, but I'm going to turn this over to our Vital Center rep, Steve Cotton, to take you through an introduction. Steve?
Hi. So the Vital Center is a downtime application that will allow you to get access to your patient chart when you don't have access to the TouchWorks EHR. Those situations could be that your clinic or your office has completely lost internet connectivity so that you don't have access to the EHR, or your office might still have internet connectivity where you can get out to Yahoo and ESPN and those websites. However, for some reason you can't get to the EHR if the EHR is down for the weekend for an upgrade or something of that nature. So once you realize that EHR is down, what you'll do is you'll go to a particular PC within the clinic that has the Vital Center terminal client installed locally on it, and you'll go ahead and click the icon here on the desktop. What that will do is that will open up the login page for you. You'll be prompted with a password, and the password that you're going to be expected to enter into this field will be your Windows login. So the same password that you use to log into the PC that day. Just want to really iterate that it will not be the same as your Allscripts login. It will be your Windows login. Notice here that once I've logged in, I'm presented with the Vital Center workspace. The first thing I'll draw your attention to is our what we call distribution list. So as I click this drop down, what we have is a group of providers that would typically work in this clinic, and I can look at each of these providers' schedules. The next control we have here is our calendar control. So any dates within here that are listed as green and bold, those are dates where we have appointment data. The way that we're setting up Vital Center for CHI is that all providers will have the ability to view 5 days of future appointment data. So if I log in right now to the CHI environment, I'd be able to see my appointments at that time for the next 5 days. And what we really expect is that will get you through any types of downtime that you have. Normally, the understanding is that the downtime will just be for a couple hours, maybe a day, but we provide 5 days of appointment data just to get you through any extreme scenarios. Note that below I have this provider's particular schedule. I've got some basic demographic information, and I can simply access this patient's chart by double-clicking on that schedule. After double-clicking on that scheduled appointment, we'll see I have the patient's chart information here. So all the information comes from the TouchWorks EHR, so I have the patient's demographic information. I've got all my different problem categories that I would see within the clinical desktop component of TouchWorks. I have the ability to see any documented allergies. We can view the patient's current medications. We can view the patient's recent vitals. We can see recent immunizations. Any recent results that have come back from a lab vendor that have been entered within the EHR. Any outstanding orders. And then finally, one of the most important pieces here is we have the ability to view notes. So the way the system is configured today is we have up to 6 recent notes will be displayed for the patient. So within here we get to see when the note was created, who the physician was, the document type, and also the status of that note. So really what we've walked through here is the ability for you to get access to your patient's clinical information in that downtime event. So again, we've double-clicked on the patient's appointment within the schedule. We've reviewed their historical information. And now the next logical step in this workflow is that we want to go ahead and provide documentation for this downtime visit. So Vital Center will allow you to perform documentation by clicking the New button here within the Vital Notes tab, and you'll be prompted with a note workspace. We have the ability to change the template based on the type of note it is, whether or not it's a follow-up visit, a new patient visit, or if it's a basic note that simply allows you to enter a text block. Within each of these sections, I can free text in any information for the visit, or for any users out there using Dragon or any other speech recognition software, we can use the speech recognition software within this workspace as well. So I simply put my cursor in there and I can fill out each one of these sections. Once finished with the documentation for each one of these sections, we have 2 options. We can save this as a draft, which will allow this to save the document locally to this PC, so I can come back later in the day and finish up my note, or I can commit this. By committing this, what that does is it saves the note, it sends the note up to the Vital Center server and to the Allscripts server. So to give you a summary of what that really means is, once I hit the commit button, once TouchWorks EHR is back up, if we log into this patient's chart, we would see this exact note in that patient's chart. So by virtue of you completing the note within Vital Center will take that note and insert it into the patient's chart within TouchWorks so that you've got the documentation from the downtime event. Now, the second scenario here I mentioned was that we can save a draft of this note. So by saving a draft of this note, we'll save it locally. And if we want to access any notes that we saved earlier in the day, we can click on the history button here. And what that does is that gives me a whole summary of all the notes that have been uploaded or completed here. And if I wanted to click on a save draft on this particular PC, I can simply double-click this here, and I can see that I'm prompted with the patient's notes so that I can continue with the documentation. Once I'm finished with the documentation, I can commit this note and it'll be placed into the EHR. So what we've looked at so far is how to access a patient's appointment, how to perform documentation for a visit, and that's a simple workflow because it goes together. There's a third piece of functionality that we're going to talk about here, and that's our on-demand functionality. So in certain cases where your office still has internet connectivity so that your PC can speak to the Vital Center server, we can look up any patient's chart. So the use case for this is if we have any walk-ins that aren't on the schedule, we can look up those patient's charts by going to the On-Demand tab, and I can simply search for any demographic information here, but I'll go ahead and use last name. I can search for any patient, and this is, again, a patient that's not on my schedule. They might be a walk-in. I can customize this chart so I can identify any information I want to be downloaded. I can expand or decrease the number of days of results. And once I'm finished customizing this, I can simply go ahead and click on Get Vital Chart. What my PC is doing right now is speaking to the Vital Center server. We're compiling this patient's chart, and I'm pulling it down so that I can look at this patient who is a walk-in patient. I can look at their chart. Once I have their chart in context here and I've familiarized myself with the patient's history, I have the ability to go back and perform documentation through the same functionality that we looked at through the new Vital Notes tab up here. A couple other pieces of documentation I'd like to point out. Vital Center does have the ability to save a local copy of a patient's chart. We also have the ability to print a particular document. So if we find that some of the physicians are more interested in using a printed document as opposed to logging into the Vital Center application, we can certainly print a document to a local printer. Finally, we can lock our session here, and then our last item here is our help button. So if I have any questions on how to utilize Vital Center, and it's a fairly simple application, but if I have any questions on how to use Vital Center, I can click on the help button, and I can get a simple quick reference guide that will be available here that will walk me through the majority of the functionality for the application.
All right, thank you, Steve.